Hi, everyone. Don Famularo here, and I'm excited again to have the opportunity of being able to present to you incredible players. What Mapex has done is just so exciting to reach out and bring in all these different players from all around the world. So I want to present to you today a fantastic drummer, and we talk about how we have to monetize our business, about how we have to think about different aspects of our business and how we can grow and be creative with what we're doing. I got someone here that's really going to open up some minds and some doors for you. Would you please welcome Mr. Jimmy Pemberton? Yeah, here we go. We'll bring him in. Here.
Yeah. What's up, Dom?
Jimmy, thanks so much for joining me. You know, as I mentioned just the opening about just the fact that in the course of life, what I get a chance to do is meet these great young players and present them to this incredible industry that we have out there in the world. This goes globally in the process. It'll go on to Facebook and eventually onto YouTube. And the key thing is that what you have done, which I want to get into every aspect of it, is that you've really kind of widened your scope of how you play, how you teach, how you consult, many different areas of what you're doing, which is exciting that I want everyone to learn about.
Awesome. Yeah, super exciting. I'm glad we get to touch upon that. I feel like sometimes within our industry, we get so focused on the fun and what it is to play, which obviously we should, but there's so much more that we can get into through the instrument as well.
Boy, absolutely, and point well taken. I mean, what I do, aside from performing and doing some recording and doing some teaching and master classes and writing books, and I run my publishing company with Joe Bergamini. So there's so many aspects of it that it's all fun for me in the journey because I'm still around music and still around drumming, so it's exciting. But I want to go back to when you first started playing. You live up in the Boston area. Did you always live in that area inside near Boston?
Yeah, so I grew up further down on the South Shore in Marshfield, and now I've lived in Quincy for about 10 years-ish.
Great.
Somewhere around there.
I know that area, both Marshfield and Quincy, very, very well. It's just it's great that you're there. So you know the whole Boston scene of what's happening. You started playing drums at an early age. When did that start?
Yeah, so I got started. I started playing seriously around 16 is when I was like, oh, we're doing this. When I started to gig out in a band with some older guys and started to play bars and get some money for the first time. And I was like, oh, okay, this is it. I get it.
So here you are. You start playing. So when you started playing, did you immediately get a drum set? Was it
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So I was super lucky where when my parents saw me sort of tapping on the dashboard in the car, they just got me a drum set. They saw it and they were like, okay. And I always was super high energy, and I think they saw the drums as this thing that they could feed the energy to.
Smart parents. Good for them.
I agree.
So you get a drum set and you start playing. So were there other friends your age that you were jamming with?
Yeah. So at that time, I started to, as word got around, if you will, that I played drums, that's where the guitar player buddies came around. Oh, you play drums, I play guitar. And then it was, oh, let's get together after school. Get together and jam.
Who were you listening to? What music?
Ah, man, at that time, I've always been sort of into the, I guess you'd call it anything that was popular. I was into. So some of my first records that were like around that time getting me really deeper into drums was, let's see, No Doubt's Tragic Kingdom was big. TLC had this record, Crazy, Sexy, Cool, that was huge at the time. The band Bush. But then it was really everything. So I started studying pretty young. So from studying drums, I was really into like Tom Petty. So I got into Tom Petty pretty young. I think the first song I learned, I think it was "You Don't Know How It Feels" by Tom Petty. It was either it was somewhere in the first 3 songs I learned.
That was Stan Lynch on drums. Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So you're hearing some music. So were there any specific drummers that you were becoming aware of?
I'd say as I got a little older, the Travis Barker phenomenon hit. Right? So like Blink-182 happened. It was like, who is that? What is he doing? And so that was a big thing. And then I think through the Travis lens, if you will, start to explore that more. I got really into Josh Freese for a while. And his playing just really did it for me. And then learning that he played on all these records and played with all these artists. I remember when I learned that, I was super just like, wait, you can do that? So it was really fun as I started to learn about different drummers. It was seeing also what they were doing career-wise, right? So you had Travis Barker, who was playing in a huge band, but then you had Josh Freese, who was playing tons of sessions and playing live with a bunch of people.
So, boy, what's interesting, and I want people to understand that you know, there are so many great players that are out there that you can be influenced by, and you might not even know who they are until you do the research. We had an advantage years ago because many of their names were on the albums or on the CDs that they recorded.
Yep.
Now today, because of the digital, you know, format, we don't really have access to knowing who's playing on what and what's going on. So you have to kind of do a little bit more research now than we had to do years ago.
Yeah, I actually, you know, you get the CD or whatever and open up just to see who played, or if I learned that the artist played on something, I would go get it just because of who played drums on the record, even if I didn't really know the artist. So you're absolutely right. And I always wondered if, like, and someone told me this, I haven't really done the research myself yet, but I guess on some of the streaming service now, they're starting to make playlists.
Yeah.
Of like, all right, here's, you know, everything so-and-so played on. And I was like, oh, that is great. Like, I could spend hours just diving into different drummers and listening to the tracks that they've played on over the years.
It really is. And when you can type in certain names and it'll just inform you that you probably might not realize songs that you like that they even played on. So it really kind of informs us to know what's happening. So you're jamming with different musicians. So what was like the first band that you started playing in? Was it just a bunch of neighborhood friends? You were young. Did you start to get together and jam at all, or what was the process?
Yeah. So, you know, first off, it was just me and like a guitar player or whatnot. When the first opportunity happened with a band, I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened. Somebody had asked me, I think it was like somebody was looking for a drummer type thing. And I jumped in with a group of guys. And some of those guys too are like still like one of my best friends is a bass player named Mike Marvulio, who now lives in Nashville, but I was in my first band with him in high school, you know, so it's that whole thing. So yeah, and that was a band that we played in all through high school and then a little bit right after high school as well.
So now you're in the band, you're playing, you're jamming, you're having some fun, you're listening to the music. When did the lessons start? When did that, where you started to kind of formalize all this?
Good question. So it was actually, oddly enough, the person I just brought up, Mike Marvulio, his car had like broken down outside of my mother's house, which is where we'd practice. And his dad came to pick him up, and his dad worked at Berkeley. And his dad was like, if you're going to take this real serious, you should go see Dick DeCenzo.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And so I looked up DeCenzo's drum shop and made the phone call. And I'll never forget this. At the time, he was on vacation. And as I got to know him really well over the years, this was like his every year family vacation. And then right when he got back, I hopped in and started studying with Dickie, who became my like lifelong mentor and just a huge influence on my life far beyond drums.
What a great guy. I knew Dick DeCenzo, for many, many years. And he was just an absolutely great person, very knowledgeable, great player, great leader, and set up a drum shop in the Boston area. And of course, his son Dave, who has gone on to become a phenomenal drummer. Yep. And a great guy who does some teaching at Berkeley and has continued on, in his dad's name for sure, in such a beautiful way. And the drum shop was there. So the drum shop was there, and I had been there doing some clinics several times in the actual shop. It was a fun shop, man. At the time when drum shops were really, just doing such great things, you could go in there like a little kid in a candy store, and there was tons of stuff there. So you go there, you start studying with Dick. What did he start putting you through as far as what you were learning?
Oh, good question. He assessed me, and then we got right back to square one to correct all the bad habits. So we really got into molar technique, getting my reading together, making sure that I had all my rudiments like really together. He did such a great job of building a foundation and not stopping until that foundation was there.
Yeah.
And I actually, there was one point where he had sort of sat me down and was like, if you have this, you get everything else. And at the time, I didn't get it. I just wanted to play fast and do the thing. But over time, you realize how much wisdom was in that sentence, right? It's like the foundation is the core to everything you do. And if you take the time to get that, everything else becomes 10 times easier.
It's kind of interesting as we are young and learning how sometimes that wisdom doesn't hit us as strong as we wish it did.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when we're older, many of those mentors are no longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a lesson in when we're taking lessons, really kind of listen and be involved in the lesson, because a guy like Dick was just so knowledgeable. So were there any specific books that he took you through?
Yeah, so he had his book, which is Workbook for the Modern Drummer.
Yeah.
We did Syncopation by Ted Reed. What is the one by Roy Burns?
There were a couple of Roy Burns books.
It's the first one, like the real basic. It's blue.
It had some reading stuff in there. It had a couple. Yeah. I don't remember the title of it, but
I can't remember the title, but it was. Oh, was it Elementary Drum Method? Does that sound right?
Might have been it. Elementary Drum Method. Good for you.
That was like the three, and then other than that, it was some charts, and that was where I started. Was those three books and some charts and getting to it.
He had charts that he wrote out that you would. Was it like? Did he have tracks to play along with those charts? What was it like?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Some of the first ones, was a CD from a book. We used some of the thing that was from this drum sessions book, but then he had also written a chart to it as well.
Mm.
Right? So it was getting sort of a mixture of everything. And then he would do this awesome thing where he'd say, okay, the last two bars are yours. You write what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So he had this real talent of integrating the creativity. So not only were you getting all the rudimental stuff and making sure that you could read, but then it was like, okay, now can you be creative within that same space? And not only can you be creative just from here, but can you write it out, right? So it was really just making you do it. And he did this other thing. I haven't thought about this in years. This is great. He'd make you read to him, and it was the best. At the time, I was like, what is he having me? Like literally just speak out loud and read like you were in school. But the confidence that built within me, and I'm sure many of the other students, was huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, that's the skill. We mentioned someone like Dick, who was just several years older than I was, but like these great masters that came before us, Morello and Jim Chapin and all these great masters. These guys were not old school; they were old school. Made old school look new. I mean, because everything was about foundation and fundamentals, and listen, that really is what now we realize is extremely important in the process. Well, that's great that you had a chance to sit down and work with Dick. So you're taking lessons. How long did you study with Dick for?
God, through the years, on and off, it must have been, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, somewhere in there. Yeah. About 2 months in, there was a job opening at the drum shop, and he offered me the job. So that's how I got into, instrument retail, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I was working with him, and then the manager at the time was a great guy named Andy Keeson.
Yeah.
And we were, are just there learning everything I could about drums. And it was a real special spot because of where it was. You had, people that worked at Vader coming to visit, people that worked at Zildjian coming in to visit, not to mention all the other reps who, when they were in town, would come in.
Yeah.
And drum clinics were a part of it as well. So there was a lot of that going on, and it was just, I don't know, for me, it was, I think I was like 18, 19 at the time when I started, maybe a little bit younger, but to be around that I was just soaking it up. And as time went on, I sort of became the substitute teacher. If there was a teacher out, I could go in and sub for them. And then over time, I became a full-time teacher there as well.
Well, look at the brilliance of what Dick did. He really kind of set you up for
everything. Yeah.
And the retail end is so important to understand, to learn. You have to have people skills, talk to people. You got to have product skills. You got to know product. You've got to know prices. You've got to know numbers. So you're starting to becoming prepared in the business world, which is such an important part of the drumming end. So now you're subbing teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're balancing teaching. You're balancing working in the store.
Yep.
You're pretty busy at this particular point.
Absolutely, yeah. And at that same point, or sometime in that, like right around 19, 20 years old, I got a gig to start going on the road, doing like what's called the NACA circuit, so playing all colleges. So then I was going from, drum shop to rehearsals to out on the road for, Thursday, Friday, Saturday gigs, and then home, and then teaching. So it became like this crazy thing of full-time, all the time drumming, which I loved. That was like, there was that certain period where I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like I'm making a living and I'm doing it, and it's all drum related. And it's funny, Dickie D sat me down at one point and he was like, I could see you really doing like a career thing here where you do a little bit of everything and have a good career. Now at the time, this is me also being young, I was like, no, I'm just going to make it, whatever that meant in my head at the time, like some rock star stuff. And I didn't realize how clearly he saw what was already happening.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful my career went the way that he saw that he could already see, where it's like, oh no, you're piecing the right things together.
Yeah. That the concept of making it, and which is a wonderful dream, to hook up with a band and go on tour and make great money and do what you love doing. That really, if that's a primary dream, that's fantastic. But there are other dreams that can happen within that dream, and to work alongside that dream that can allow you to maintain being in the music industry and monetizing and making money from it. And as you're making money from it, you're still kind of in your dream zone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I almost think we need to redefine all of that, because it has changed a lot in the space, but at least in my own experience, I feel like if people only do the whatever that one dream is, let's say it's touring with a band or whatever, they might really miss out on a bigger dream or a better dream, if you will. Like there's so much to experience in this world of drumming, and it can get you in so many doors that it's like, if you have something else you're into, you should absolutely explore it within the lens too. Like, it's the drums are a great door opener. I've learned that too. People are fascinated by them who aren't in the industry, and that will just lead to things as well.
And there's opportunity, and being aware of being able to accept and learn and keep yourself open to opportunity, and if it turns into monetizing and still staying within the family of music and drumming, it's all good.
Yes, absolutely.
What you learned from business, being behind the counter at the drum shop, is now you understood how to run your business, and that sharpened your skills up to be able to become more successful when you put your bands and things together. So all of this is so it sounds like you're really involved in a lot of different things. So you're touring. So now you're scheduling touring. Yep. You're scheduling working at the shop. You're working teaching at the shop.
Yeah.
And was there a point now where you started doing other freelancing, other things were coming in at that time?
Yeah. So there was a few things. One of the big things that started at that point was consulting. First, it started sort of in the music industry, doing everything from digital marketing. And then just from being in Boston, it was an odd thing where it was a drummer friend of mine was like, hey, you got to meet this guy named Brett Zukowski. You just got to meet him. I was like, okay. So I did this 20-minute lunch with this guy, Brett Zukowski. And we sat down, and I was just telling him, he just was asking all my career questions. Like, so how long have you been doing the drum thing? What's that like? And then at the end of it, he's like, do you want to consult for the Game Show Network? And I was like, I've never done anything like that. He's like, yeah, you'll be fine. We could use a creative drummer guy looking at some stuff. I said, great. And that's what got me really into consulting on the tech side. So I worked with their research and development team and a few other teams within the company, but mainly on mobile gaming apps at the time.
So what exactly would you do? Because I mean, this industry is Joel Sevenant is another wonderful drummer who records drum tracks for video games, and that's a whole nother business of what it is. So what exactly were you doing? You were consulting and designing programs, or
within this context, it was more so understanding the audience. So I just came from being on the road. On our off dates from college shows, you're trying to sell tickets and merchandise to, your club date or your hall date, and then, your T-shirts, anything, right? So It was about that communication with the community digitally is where I really helped them. So they were building, let's say, a game, and then we would go, how are we talking to the fans of this game on Twitter? Twitter was kind of the head of that at the time, and now it would be more so Instagram, TikTok, etc. Yeah. But it was really more, how are we communicating with the fans? How are we bringing them into feel like they're a part of, this product being a game? And I was just taking everything I learned from being in a band. And it was the same thing, and just applying it somewhere different. And the difference too was I got, some money from playing on the road, but I didn't get money for doing this, but I could take that skill and then into the tech side of things and get, a whole nother piece of income for it.
So this now, so you had to really kind of organize yourself and map out a plan and gather information. So, what are you an organized person?
Yeah, now more than ever.
Yeah.
At that time in my life, no, not really. So it's like weird. Yes, when it came to anything like my drum schedule, yes. So it was always written out perfectly. Like I was on it.
Right.
In the other areas of my life, I was a little bit more free flowing. And then I had to really take everything I learned from the drum side, even from studying, right? Like if you're going to study drums and take it seriously, like I never wanted to go in and disappoint Dickie. So it was like, you try to have your stuff together. And I had to take all of that from the education stuff to the touring, apply that to being a teacher, and then apply that to being a consultant as well.
Fantastic.
Like you never wanted to show up into a meeting and put your ideas on the table and not have things to back up why you feel like your ideas would work. Right. So it was always keeping that together. And then at that time, my schedule was so insane that I was ruled. I used to say this all the time. I was ruled by my calendar. I woke up and I was like, okay, our night before, all right, that's what's going on tomorrow. Cool. That would move. And I still am to a degree that way. I make time now for a little bit more space. But overall, it's still like now it's on the phone, obviously, and I'm on the phone and I'm hitting it. I'm like, all right, tomorrow's good. We're good.
So the scheduling thing is so important. I want you to kind of expand on that because for me, I have been a calendar person. I have a month at a glance calendar that I've been saving, and I did it every year since 1973.
Nice.
I wrote everything down, and I saved all those calendars when they were handwritten in that month at a glance calendar. So I've got all of those in my office, and I get a kick out of it. I go back every once in a while and go back several years, just kind of see what I was doing on those dates. And it really was kind of interesting. So now, of course, everything is online. I use Google Calendar, but man, I live that way. Everything, I schedule everything. Phone calls, lessons, master classes, meetings, whatever I have, I schedule everything. So at night when I go to bed, I got to check my calendar and find out, okay, what's my plan, man? And if I need more time to send emails out and I start at 7 o'clock in the morning with some lessons, I got to make sure I get up at like 5:30 so I can get up and so that's kind of what scheduling is. So is that kind of how you run it? You schedule everything kind of in your calendar and organize yourself?
Yeah, 100%. So I sort of two ways of doing it. I love that you look back at old calendars. I think that's huge. I'm a big journal guy, so I write in my journal almost every day. So that's like saving, let's call it like the emotional data too.
Yeah.
Right? And I do the same thing. I'll look back like 2 years ago on this day. What was I thinking about, or what was going on? And then you can sort of chart good habit loops or maybe not so good habit loops.
Yeah.
And make corrections. But yeah, on the day-to-day calendar side, everything. I mean, from my workout to if the day's like super intense, I'll put meals in to make sure that like it's there. So I'm not that crazy, if you will, every day. But on the days that need to be, definitely. Or like travel days, which obviously hasn't been for a while. But if there was time where I was doing one thing here to whatever, New York for 2 days, home, like when I was doing that sort of craziness, I scheduled absolutely everything. And it just made me feel better. It was more of like at times an emotional thing too, where it was like, okay, it's all written down.
Yeah.
I don't have to save it up here right now. It's all in place there, and I trust it.
And that's a very important part. We've got people that have signed on from all around the world here, which I want to mention in a second. But that level of remembering, I write everything down. And years ago, it was on pen and paper. Now it's in my phone, in my notes section. I jot everything down. Whatever I have to do, calls, people, projects I'm working on, I schedule everything because I can't trust my memory anymore.
Sure.
You're probably doing so much now, and you're doing so much that if you don't put all the stuff down, we're going to screw up, and we don't want to screw up.
Yep. Yeah, you'll miss something. It's the whole like when they say lost in the sauce. My goal is always to not lose something in the sauce.
Absolutely. So I got a couple of people here. I want to pull up some things. This is so cool. We've got first of all, we got Sean Preston.
Yeah, Sean.
Came by and say hello for sure. Thank you so much, Sean. Jeff Towers has joined us here. Jeff,
Awesome.
thank you so much for joining us. Israel Sanchez, thank you so much. We've got, boy, Jose is here. Look at this here. We got some great guys here. Pedro Barahona, a phenomenal drummer, player, and teacher in Chile.
Awesome.
So he's joined us. We've got Artemir Kaur, who is from Moscow, who is not right now. Artemir, thank you so much. Artemir is in a masterclass that I do on a weekly basis for Maxim Diomin. He's always joining us, a phenomenal player. He and his wife plays drums also, a fantastic artist in herself, too. The two great people.
Amazing.
We have, Derek, thanks so much, elementary drum master.
Yeah. He stayed with Dick DeSunzo as well.
Derek, thanks so much for joining us. We've got Bruno Muse. Bruno Muse is a phenomenal drummer based out of Antwerp, Belgium.
Amazing.
Great drummer, and also a phenomenal Mapex artist. I'll have him soon on what's happening. Boy, look at this here. Mark Bennett. Jimmy. Mark's fantastic. Jacoby Gunter, who's a phenomenal young player.
Yeah, he is.
Jacoby is, I've known Jacoby when he was just a young kid. He's just gone on to do some great things. He's just a wonderful role model. Thank you, Jacoby, for joining us. John Olam is another student of mine from North Carolina. If Tees could talk, he's got a t-shirt business also on top of him playing and getting into teaching. And then he's got t-shirts with his wife. That's a whole nother business in the music industry, outside the music industry. And actually this here that I'm wearing right now is one of his t-shirts that he put together, Global Domination. We put together the logo. So
yeah, I like that.
John, for joining us for sure. We've got guys here. Look at this here. I'm going to pull up Carlos Gutzman. So, hi, Jimmy. Since you worked at the drum shop when you were young and you were able to play all the different brands of drums that you sold, what makes you gravitate towards Mapex drums, and has your setup changed drastically for when you started your career?
Great question. So yeah, I got to try everything out, which was awesome. Like the best. I can't get over that enough. Like when new drums would come in, it was usually my job to take them out of the box and get them set up and ready. Within all of that, what made me choose Mapex was more so, I guess I'll just be real straight on it. I think everybody makes great drums. I really do, right? All the companies are awesome. Yeah. And, hats off to all of them. They make great things. They're all trying to innovate. And so I think that is sort of a given. With Mapex, the thing that attracted me most to the company was really the people and in the culture that they were building and looking to build going forward. Yeah. That to me was so exciting, where it was like, okay, played the drums. I was like, okay, the drums are phenomenal, which was, in my opinion, to be sort of expected. High-end drums, great. But when you learned what they were going after as a company and to set up a certain culture and to support, I think to support someone like me and their interest in it, I thought was super interesting, and I was super grateful and still am grateful for it, where it was like, I'm not the biggest fish, if you will, but I'm a small fish and I know what I like to do, and I have this diversified thing, and they were about supporting all of it. And I was like, wow, this is the best. And knowing that they would do that for somebody like me, I was like, oh, they'll do this for other drummers. And that's where I was like, all right, this is the best place to be. Like, the drums are amazing, but above and beyond that, it's the people and the culture and the way they're supporting drummers. Unbelievable. That you can't, it's like having good neighbors. Yeah. Right? You don't know how good it is to have good neighbors until you either have bad neighbors or great neighbors, right? And Mapex is good neighbors, so to speak, in that element.
This is so important because where I moved on the North Shore of Long Island, on both sides of my house, both of my neighbors were deaf. How much better could that have been, Jim? How much better? Those are great neighbors.
That's amazing. Yes. Yes, that is drummer ideal.
And then I built the studio, and I completely soundproofed this room that I'm in right now. And I built the studio. People said, gee, did you build it because you didn't want your neighbors to hear you? I said, no. I built it because I don't want to hear them. If they're doing something where the kids are playing outside, I don't want to hear them. So that's a good point about what Mapex is about. And Mapex is really just the people are great. Mark Bennett, Jeff Mulvihill, Rick DeYoung, all these great people that are just, in the trenches with us with ideas. For sure. Sport education. And I'm not sure if you had the chance of getting to know Joe Hibbs. Joe passed away about 4 years ago.
Yeah, I never got to know him, but I mean, I always heard about him, and the way people still speak about him is like It's amazing.
He really was a blessing to the industry because he knew the industry very well. I had known Joe for over 40 years. And just when he got involved in bringing people in and just helping to the vision that he had and the vision that Mapex accepted from these great visions of all these great people really was very, very powerful. So you're playing. So are you playing this? You're playing the Saturn V. I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah, Saturn 5 right now, and I have a configuration. What am I doing? 10, 12, 14, 16, and a 20-inch kick. I always sort of change it up. Back when I was, touring late teens, early 20s, I was playing 24, 12, 16. I wouldn't say I get bored. I think more what happens is as I was exposed to what's the right wording here? I was exposed to a lot of great drums working at a drum shop. And I got to learn so much about what every size drum could do that sometimes when I'm playing a 20, I miss a 24. Sometimes I'm playing a 24, I miss a 20 or splitting the difference with a 22. It just depends. So I always sort of change it up just for my own fun. And obviously, depending on who I'm playing with, we'll change up things slightly. But overall, in a lot of ways, it's just for me. Like, even sometimes it's a visual thing. Like, I'm like, okay, this will do the job, but I want it to look a certain way or feel a certain way behind it. Like it feels different to get being behind a 20 versus a 24.
That's what I love about how great Mapex is to work with. I mean, just the fact that they have my 20-inch that I have on. I've got 20 and 22s with a lot of my kits. They sound just fantastic. They're deep. They're big. The maple with the walnut. I mean, they're just the whole combination of what they did is fantastic to see. And but I mean, I know you've been with the company now just a few years, but it's just so great that you have that access of being able to have a great sounding kit and working with great people.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the best. And hopping on the phone with them and discussing ideas are, sometimes they'll get artists on, like especially during, everything that the world's sort of going through now, getting a few artists on Zoom just to have a chat. It's like so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
But Mapex, and I'm going to bring up Bruno again. Bruno Muse, Mapex Europe always gives him royal service. Mm-hmm. So not just Mapex in the U.S. here, each country that has their distributor, they're into it, and the service that they give is just is really first class. They respect the artists, and plus they are absolutely supportive of education, which I love. That's the game of what we're doing, which leads me into the Lesson Squad. I want to explain the Lesson Squad, but what you've done, how it started, and sure. I want to kind of get more involved in understanding about it.
Absolutely. So I'll give sort of an overview first. Lesson Squad in itself is a digital platform that helps manufacturers get data on their artist roster. But really underneath that, what it does is it serves the artist. So it's a place where the artists can create a page. If they teach, they can give lessons and do it all completely in the Lesson Squad platform. And then they can also list all the gear that they recommend. And for anyone that purchases some of the gear that they recommend, whatever the product may be, the artist makes 5% of that sale. So the overall concept was really taking the old school brick and mortar model and digitizing it. So you have retail in the front, lessons in the back. The difference now is it's all in the power of the end user, being the artist. And then the benefit of all of that is that a company such as Mapex gets all the data on their artist roster. So when they see that artist that's like, oh, this guy's teaching a bunch, or this girl's teaching a bunch, or they've recommended this gear, they now know like, oh, all of our artists are recommending this product. They now know it, right? So they're starting to get this data set that's going to increase what they're able to do as well. And the way this started was real simple. I was teaching and I was doing super well, and some of my counterparts needed help getting students. And I was, this was years ago, so I was one of the only people really embracing the digital tools. So at the time, it was like MySpace, Twitter, etc., even early days of YouTube. And I was able to attract students using all these digital tools. And then I started helping friends out, being like, hey, can I give you a roster of students? And then get a kickback. And then we started to figure that out. And at the time, I happened to be consulting for a company called Cosmo. And one of the founders was a great guy named Josh Hoffmanson, who's also the co-founder of Lesson Squad. Yeah. And when we were working together on that, he saw what I was doing, just, building the beginnings of what Lesson Squad would become. And he was like, do you want help? Because he's also a musician. He plays guitar and keys. And he was excited about it. And I was like, oh, absolutely. And at the time, his company was being acquired, and he was going off to business school. So he started at Harvard Business School. And then that's right when we started to really focus on it. And he got our company into the Harvard Innovation Lab in their venture incubation program. So we took 2 years at the Harvard Innovation Lab to test everything. So we started off as simply, okay, here's a piece of tech where a teacher signs on, use it, and helps them get students.
Right.
So it was like step one, did that. First, we started regionally.
Well, it looks like we lost, for some reason, we lost Jimmy. He was just in the midst of explaining Lesson Squad. We haven't, and he just kind of dropped out. Not exactly sure what happened. I'm going to continue to talk. I believe I am still live here. So this is so great to see how Jimmy will come back to us. In the course of that time, I want to look at this here. Jim Royal. Jim, thanks so much for joining us here. This Jim is another fantastic player in the Connecticut area. I think I'm bringing Jimmy in back now. Here, let's see if we have him here. Show and screen. Come on, where are you, Jimmy? Hang on, come on. Jim Royal is another fantastic player. Here it is over here. Let's go back into here. Show and screen here. Let's bring him in now. Jimmy, you're back. All right, fantastic.
I'm back. It was so weird. I got to see you. I got to watch you talk and bring people up the whole time, but I had no way in. I was locked out.
We have you back in. I just pulled up Jim Royal, who's a wonderful player and teacher from Connecticut. And again, there might be certain players that are even joining us now that I think should go to lessonsquad.com and contact you to get involved in what you're doing. So, even just we have, here's Kevin Gaffney just joined us, catching up with us here. This is fantastic. And it's just really kind of great to have all these people. So Lesson Squad. So you have this thing, you put it together, kind of continue where you left off.
Yeah, so we were in the venture incubation program, and we just started to test everything. So first it was, okay, do music teachers want us to help get them students? We started doing that. We learned some things. Then we started to say, okay, what if we gave you a scheduler, a digital scheduler, so that would keep your schedule for you, and it would ping you every time you got a student, but the lesson was about to happen, in a half hour.
Right.
And then on the front end of that, we said, okay, what if we showed you're a teacher, and we showed the area in which you teach? So we just started to add little tools at first. And it worked, and we processed a ton of lessons, and that was cool, but it wasn't enough where it was like moving the needle, if you will. Like people weren't like joining in droves or like excited about it. It wasn't that different. Then when we added retail, everything changed. So we started to contact the retailers and work with their affiliate programs. And then we said, okay, well, what if we gave a place not only to teach, but then there's the gear that you recommend. And I knew a lot of these guys weren't getting paid for what they recommended, and yet they were responsible for a lot of sales. So I was like, what if we engineered that together? And so then we started testing, okay, you're an educator, here's your education page, and then here's the gear you recommend. And the honest original thought behind it was just the holiday season or the occasional birthday. Like I knew as an educator, they'd be like, oh, little Timmy needs a new snare drum, what should we get? And then I would normally have to go online, send a link, or it would just be a process. And so I was like, let's get rid of that. And that was the initial intent, where it was, instead of going to search for it, now it's just, here's a link to everything I recommend.
Right.
And same with when you have that new student, what do I need to start studying with you? Is it this book, and a pair of sticks? Well, cool. Now it's all right here. So that was it. But it really got taken to this other place where, one musician would take it and they would share it with all their students, but then they'd put a link under their YouTube video. Or they'd put the link in the bio of their Instagram. And I was like, oh, and it became this thing. And then we found in the platform musicians checking out what other musicians recommended, as we do, right? And it reminded me of like back in the day, flipping through a modern drummer, looking at another drummer's configuration. What do they play? Yeah. Right? So now we're giving that in real time, where it's like, here it is set up by the drummer himself or herself. And now you can actually buy it. Right. So, and that's really where it came together. And then, about a couple weeks before the first lockdown here in the States is when we launched this version of the platform where, an artist, educator, what have you, could join. They could set up all their teaching and they could set up all the gear they recommend. And we got really lucky with, the great people at Mapex and even overall at KHS America. They were our pilot partners. So they jumped on to help test everything with us and helped us. In special shout out to like Mark Bennett, Jeff Movahill, and the whole team there. They were the ones giving the notes too, going, okay, this is cool, this is not cool. And they helped us really make it great over this year. And now it's gotten to a point where a lot of manufacturers are joining to use it. Tons of artists are on it. The amount of monthly lessons just keeps increasing, which is super fun. Right. And we recently added a clinic feature. So yeah, so now we're just in the game, if you will, and it's super, super exciting.
So are you involved with certain retail stores?
Yes. So right now, well, I guess the first thing I'll say is we try to be completely retail diverse. So any retailer that wants to be a part of Lesson Squad can be. And right now our current partners are Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Sam Ash, Standard Music, World Music Supply. And the next part of us developing that piece of the business is we really want to go after the mom and pop shops and get them on the platform. Right. And part of the reason for that is, well, one, obviously a special place in my heart, but furthermore, we want everyone coming on to be able to click a button that says shop local, enter their area code, zip code, and up comes the shops that they can support locally. So even though you're shopping digital, you can still support local in that same way.
So in this process, you have to contact a retail store, explain to them what you're doing, examples of what's happening, and then try and see how you can create that collaboration. Boy, those are important skills to have to make those calls, and that's business 101. This is really fantastic what you're doing.
For sure, thanks. Yeah, it's been exciting. This was sort of my first business venture that really tied everything I do, from the music side to tech to just the overarching business thing all in one. So it's, for me personally, it's been this like fun emotional ride as well.
Well, this is great. We've got some people here. I want to bring this one up here. Frank Perry, who's a dear friend of mine and has studied with me for many, many years, lives here on Long Island. Awesome. And not only is an excellent drummer, and he put together an ambisymmetrical kit where it's got literally a mirrored image kit where he plays.
Yeah.
Ergonomics. The name ambisymmetrical to have that level of a kit, and but he also graduated a teaching degree, so he can teach several instruments. He can teach violin and guitar and piano and clarinet, saxophone. So I mean, here's someone that probably could, even with Lesson Squad, get involved and really widen his area of being able to open up to all instruments.
For sure, absolutely, and that's the other thing. It's a great place for all instruments. And one of the things that happened early too was a lot of artists who were touring but now off the road, who were like, oh, I don't really teach, but I mentor. So we added a mentorship tab, right? So because they're like, one guy came to us and he's like, I get, 3 messages a week asking if I can be taken out for coffee. And he's like, now I can't be taken out for coffee. And so we added the mentorship piece, and that's been a thing. So if there's an artist on there, when you read some of these bios of the people who are on here, it's amazing. And you get to pick their brains, and now you just hop into it like a regular lesson. So you can do everything from learning the gear, from learning even things from, backline text, etc., to obvious, regular music lessons, learning your rudiments and everything that goes with that. Up to just mentorship. What is it to have a career? In which way? So if there's somebody on there that you see and you admire what they've done or want to learn about their path, now it's just a click away to do it. It's been great. And then the way brands are choosing to use it too. Like today we launched a thing with Mapex where anyone who buys a kit from now to the end of the year gets a free lesson on Lesson Squad. Right. So just, again, tying it all together and enriching the entire industry is now the sort of next generation goal for the whole thing.
Absolutely. And again, this is out of the mind of this Mapex team, this KHS, Jerry Goldenson and all these people that are at the helm that are just really kind of smart people that see the potential of how the world is changing. As the world changes, the music industry changes. And as the music industry changes, we have to change.
Yes.
And I'm a firm believer, if you don't change and adapt, you die.
Yep, bingo.
It really is as simple as that in the process. Boy, that's great stuff. So I mean, so you've got a variety of different teachers of all different instruments. When I checked out the site, you had Jeff Wolf on keyboard, Giovanni Hidalgo, the great Giovanni Hidalgo on percussion, Stacy Kelcher, or Kelleher on guitar, Travis Vance on bass, Larry Bolton on drums. So you've got how many teachers teaching on Lesson Squad?
Yeah, so there's a little over 1,000 teachers on there right now, and that's something into the next year we're just going to keep growing. And that's the thing. And what you're seeing there is also the main page. So if you go to that main page, I don't know, every couple of weeks or so, that always changes. So that you'll see different artists that we're featuring on there. But there's a search bar right above that where you can search by instrument, or if you're looking for someone in particular, you can also search by name.
Boy, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Boy, good luck with that. LessonSquad.com. Keep that posted for sure. Now, I had seen that you also have done a series of college talks. Talk about what that was about.
Sure, yeah. So I've been lucky to speak at a few colleges. Every year or so, I would do Berklee College of Music to their music business club, which was always super fun. And over the years, I've just met so many great students there that have gone on to do great things.
Yeah.
But I always looked at it like, for me to go do that, I would usually go and talk like career development of some sort. That seemed to be my niche, if you will, where it was like getting the word out that like I would start every talk with, raise your hand if you want to be a touring musician. Raise your hand if you want to do this. Raise your hand, right? And everyone kind of had their thing. And then like, raise your hand if you want to do two of those things. And you'd see like this sort of go up. I was like, okay. And I was like, you can.
Yeah.
You totally can. And it's totally awesome. And yeah, that's something too that I just want to get that out in the world so much more, where it's like building a career out of everything you do is the career. Sometimes we get, at least on my journey as well, where it's like, oh, I'm not really touring anymore. Am I a professional drummer? Well, it's like, yeah. Yeah, you are. You're using it in this way now. Yeah. Or same with like from teaching full time to touring full time to, put it all together. And for me, it's, I think, just the lens of, okay, I'm doing it through the lens of what I learned from drumming, and here's how it applies. Mm-hmm. And it was always amazing too, like when doing those talks, some of the students would come up to me and ask these just great questions, because let's say one of them loved, sneaker culture, but they also are touring. I'm like, do both. Go after both. Yeah. Because they will intersect at some point, especially like anything, music, fashion, art, it all does this. Yeah. It all connects. So yeah, trying to always spread that as much as possible. If something interests you, use that excitement both ways. So you get excited about playing your instrument in whichever way you do that, or being an educator, put it this way. You get excited about this other thing, put it this way, and just, they'll line up. It all comes together at some point.
Well, great advice. That really is great to allow opportunity when the door is opened up for you. Allow it to kind of come into your world and accept it and start to adapt. And you never know where it's going to take you. So go down the path and see where it can lead you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny, like for drums specific, at least in my case, the amount of doors it opened in like the most silly way, like, you'd be in a meeting and, the CEO of this company's like, hey, I used to play drums in high school. And then they want to talk to you for 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden that works itself into a consulting gig or something. Like, you just never know how it's going to manifest out. But if you love it, just keep going with it.
So talk about this consulting part is really kind of interesting, and the Game Show Network and talk about the Unity video software developers. What
Sure.
Because you're doing that. That's what you're doing right now.
So I'm not doing it right now, but the last 2 years I was working with. Originally, it was a company called Overtone that then was acquired by Unity, and Unity is a huge video game software developer, and was just working with them on similar things that I learned from being in a band. Right, it was building a community around a particular product and figuring out how to make those users become bigger fans, how to do right by the fans. It's the same thing. And then even within that, one of the big conversations was, how are musicians using video game software? Or are there any huge musicians who are also huge into video games? And you started to learn where this happened. There's a management company that we saw at one of the big video game conferences. The management company is Crush Management, who manages like Fall Out Boy, Weezer, and a bunch of others. And they were exploring a video game conference and telling us how much certain artists had a big interest there. So that I was applauding them all day, because I was like, well, they get their artists, right? And they get how it integrates. So it was super fortunate the last few years to do some work with them, and, you know, a bunch of other different tech startups along the way has always been the move.
So you really have to be, you got to be on your toes, man. You got to be able to understand, you know, how to develop this. I mean, you know, you're really kind of like in a jungle where there's no path, and you've got a machete out, and you're chopping the path along the way, and you're creating your own path. I love that. I think that's really innovative and exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, you nailed it. And that's how it feels. And that is what I learned overall, is like the deeper love, if you will, right? So like getting into drumming, at first it was like, oh, can I learn this instrument? Can I play that song, right? It's that same feeling, that same emotional high, if you will. Then it's like, oh, how do I go play shows? Oh, you got to learn how to book the show, right? You got to learn, now you got to learn about merchandise, right? And having merch at each price point. Oh, now we're getting on tour, we're in a van and trailer. That takes insurance, this and that. We got to learn to pay for that. Okay. Learning that whole thing is the same thing to me as it is in any avenue, any business, right? It is the machete through the path. And I think that's what I'm addicted to. If anything in the entire space, it's that freshness. It's same with Lesson Squad. It's like, what is it going to take to get a lot of people to use it where they're going to make their lives better? How do we enrich it so that the daily musician, everything that I've just lived the last few years, is better for the next group of guys because of a set of digital tools? And then same with, how do you make it better for the manufacturer, right? To make sure that they have all the data they need to make better choices and serve better as well.
How fantastic, though. So in this pandemic, to a certain degree, this has really kind of helped you from the pandemic.
Absolutely. So it was this interesting perfect storm of like, where anything I was doing as far as consulting took a pseudo hit because no one knew what was going to happen. And then right out the gate, Lesson Squad just starts growing super fast, because right when everybody needed these digital tools, be it the manufacturer or the artist, what have you, it was all here. And it was luck and timing and through an unfortunate circumstance, but at the same point, was really happy that we could be there to help people along. And we did a bunch of things early too to make sure that we were like staying true to that, you know, that being helpful thing, where we took our advertising budget and we were just paying artists who were using Lesson Squad to do like a Facebook Live thing. We're like, let us sponsor your Facebook Live. You can't play live right now. Either do something educational or performance, and we'll pay for your Facebook Live. And we did tons of those. And we still do things like that. Like we'll pay an artist to do a clinic. Just, you know, we just want to do our part. And then hopefully as this goes and as we keep growing, we'll be hiring some of those people as well.
Well, that's really fantastic. It's great that you have opened up an opportunity that can employ musicians and spark them off and let them think about new ways of being able to monetize. You know, you got to really kind of have a wider vision, and you have to be open-minded to take in some new ideas and experiment in these different areas. But that's really incredible. Just talking about, before we leave, I want to talk about the film Love, Weddings, and Other Disasters.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. So the film just came out on Friday. This was like a bucket list sort of checkbox for me or whatever. I got an opportunity a little over a year ago now, I think, to play in this film, to play drums in a film. They needed a drummer. It was one of the casting agencies here had posted something, and I got an email. So I had to submit, you know, they wanted a professional drummer, submit photos, whole thing. So did that, and then they're like, cool, you got the gig. This was a show. So I just thought I'd be playing drums in the background of a film, which in essence is what it is. But I got really lucky where it was 4 days on set, and I'm playing with some of the principal actors in the film. So I'm in a bunch of scenes with Jesse McCartney, Diego Bonita, and we do a bunch of playing there. And then another scene with a great artist named El King. And it was an interesting experience. I was super grateful to have had some music video experience prior. So I knew the whole miming deal. and I got that. But to sit there and to watch a film get made was awesome. I enjoyed that a ton, and they let us sit in on some of the rehearsals pre-shooting as well. So we'd get up there, we'd get a briefing on the script, we'd be on stage, the actors who were doing their dialogue would do their thing, we'd be following along. And yeah, it was just a super great learning experience. And another thing where I got paid to be behind a drum set, right? And that was just another thing. And now it's like, oh, I would love to do more of that. Like, it was great. And I got these great conversations. Like, I'm talking to the props guy. I'm like, hey, I got a drum set in the car. He's like, well, it needs to come from props. I was like, oh God, because it's this whole union thing. And so now I went after and I've researched all these props guys, and it's like, okay, how do we get the props guys like Mapex drums, right? And think about it that way, because they're the ones who truly place the drums in all these television shows, films, commercials. And so it just opened my mind up to a bunch of that. But yeah, hopefully I get to do more of that. And for my first film experience, it could not have been better. The actors were super kind, super nice. The director, Dennis Dugan, was fantastic, super great to watch him work. And the music supervisor is a guitar player down in Nashville named Keaton Simmons. He was awesome as well. So yeah, it was great. It was super fun.
How incredible that you've had this opportunity, and it sounds like you're still actively involved in doing more stuff, and you're keeping yourself going. You're creative. You're inventive of what you're doing. You're reinventing yourself and opening up opportunity that is just exciting and fun all around this crazy drumming and music industry.
Nailed it. Yeah, that's the ticket, and I hope a lot of people realize that they can do the same thing in however it applies to them, right? Like, it was great when we were chatting earlier and how early you got involved with Skype. Like, that it blew my mind, and it's just like sitting there, right? But you saw something that excited you, and you went after it, and you were so far ahead of the game. And at the time, that wasn't a thing, right? In the drum world.
It was not. It was. Skype had contacted me and said, "You're the first guy doing this. We're kind of blown away by this guy." I said, "Listen, I'm blown away by now that we have this opportunity, and here we are now." At the time, it was even before the 21st century. I wanted to be able to kind of, walk into the 21st century having a better understanding of how to reach people at a higher level in the confines of their own homes. So now that we have all these programs and doing it this way, I'm in your home, you're in my studio. This is a networking opportunity that, when I was younger, we only saw this kind of technology on Star Trek.
Right.
In the 1960s, when it was way ahead of the time. We're here now. So by having this opportunity, which is exactly what you're doing, Jimmy, you're using this incredible vision to like open up portals of opportunity that will continue to not only bring you success, but hopefully can open up the minds of the people that are listening to this to step into a whole other world of opportunity and bring it on. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah, I hope the same, man. I'm excited to see what so many of the drummers today do, because we're at this interesting point, right, where we have to make these decisions. Touring isn't actively happening, so it's like, okay, what else are you doing? Maybe some teaching, hopefully, like to give back in a way. And then, but what else? Like, what else can you add? And I think that's the fun of the journey, right? And everyone's so different on an individual basis that they'll add something different to the stew, if you will. And I think that's super exciting.
Well, you've got your machete and you're whacking away at that. You're creating a path for others to follow. Jimmy, I want to thank you so much. On behalf of Mapex, we have this opportunity to be able to have this feature. We had wonderful questions and wonderful people that we hear involved with us, and they're all thanking us right now for having this opportunity. So you've opened some minds already. Thanks so much. All the guys at Mapex, thank you so much. Jimmy Pemberton, thank you so much. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you real soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Dom. Thank you.
Thanks.